I found some more Valentine's patterns that I liked, and in this video, I'll show you how to make this heart-shaped one. The pattern is free, and I'll give you a link in the description. Let's get started. I had a 1/4 inch thick piece of purple heart that was left from another project. The width was perfect for the heart shape, and it was long enough for 5 of these patterns to fit. I drilled the pilot holes and want to use that experience as a caution to anyone who makes this Valentine. The pattern can be confusing to look at, so be very careful to only drill pilot holes in the sections you need to cut. Also, choose your drill bit size carefully and make sure the diameter of the bit will fit within the spaces. They're all on the very narrow side. I'm using a number 3 Niqua blade for this project. Niqua is spelled Niqua, and I purchased these from Bearwood Supply, my source for the Pegasus scroll saw and Pegasus blades as well. Through testing, I've found I prefer these blades for thin material and complex patterns with tight turns. I recommend you buy the Niqua blade assortment they have available so you can try them for some of your projects. The Niqua assortment has 6 dozen blades, 1 dozen each of size number 20, number 1, number 3, number 5, number 7, and number 9. The Niqua blades are made in Germany. These blades are very thin, which has advantages and disadvantages. Because they are so thin, you can easily flex them to thread through the pilot holes, but be careful you don't put a kink in the blade while you're doing that. While you're cutting, it's great to be able to maneuver into such tight spots, but be careful about putting too much pressure on the blade that it flexes and you don't get an even cut from top to bottom. Needless to say, these small blades can easily break if too much pressure is put on them as well. You may have noticed that this board has a bit of cup in it. This is not unusual for boards this thin, particularly when they've been resawn from a thicker board as this one has been. I can compensate for that, which while cutting on the scroll saw, and it will flatten out when clamped and glued to a backer board. There aren't a lot of inside cuts for this piece, but they are small and odd shaped. I'm trying to stay just inside the lines while cutting because there is a danger of making the areas that are left very fragile and a danger of breaking loose. I'm using purple heart for this because I already had some on hand, but it's expensive and you may not have any readily available. If that's the case, you might use popcorn painted red. Of course, that's just a suggestion. You can use any wood that suits your imagination. You will, however, certainly want to use a contrasting wood for the backer in order for the word Valentine to stand out on the front. I completed the inside cuts on one of the Valentines, so I'll go ahead and make the outside cut. I like to start at an angle or point when I can. If I start on the curve of the heart and cut all the way around, when I get back to that spot, it usually leaves a little rough area. As long as it's an accessible place, I can smooth it out with a little piece of sandpaper or a file later, but I can avoid that by starting at this point at the top of the heart. It's a little easier to see the word Valentine with those spaces between the letters cut out. I used scroll saw tape to attach the pattern to the wood, and one of the reasons I like it is that it peels off quickly, usually in one piece when you're done cutting. I'll leave a link to my source in the description. The last cutting step will be to make a backer for the front that says Valentine. I wanted a light-colored wood to contrast with the purple heart, and I found several suitable pieces in one of my cut-off boxes. I have a stack of them with the wood sorted by thickness. This makes it much quicker to find what I'm looking for. I used a glue stick to attach the pattern to the backer. It doesn't pull off as neatly as the scroll saw tape, but it works well for attaching small pieces. A little bit of sanding will clean up the remaining paper. That lighter colored back sure makes the letters stand out. The next step will be to glue and clamp the two pieces together. With the front and back are both done, it's time for the glue up. Since there are such small areas where I need to put glue on this purple heart piece, I'm using this little bottle that originally held Elmer's glue. These are readily available anywhere you can buy school or office supplies. After I used up the glue that came with the bottle, I refilled it with Tight Bond white glue, which I buy in gallon bottles. It's more economical this way, but it's much easier to apply glue from smaller bottles, as I'm doing here. The white glue is plenty strong for this application, and it has the advantages of being water-soluble and clear when dry. Since it's water-soluble, I can use my finger to spread it, and since it dries clear, I don't need to be concerned about any squeeze-out being visible when the glue dries. My favorite clamps for projects like these are these little spring clamps. They're inexpensive, so you can easily have a dozen or more on hand. I have a large collection of F-clamps as well, like most woodworkers doing this a long time, but they're larger than necessary, and you can't fit very many of them around these small spaces. Plus, with F-clamps, the two surfaces you are gluing here have a tendency to move around when you're turning the screw to apply pressure. The spring clamps merely supply downward pressure, and they can be applied very quickly. With this step done, I'll be ready to move on to applying a spray polyurethane finish when the glue dries. Here's the completed Valentine. This one is purple heart with a poplar back, which provides decent contrast, but an even lighter background maple or aspen would probably look even better. Please be sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so.